Are there people out there who are not fascinated with Cubism? Sadly, there may indeed be such individuals, but I am not among their number. And neither is the subject of this film.
Sorry, I'm so loud. Hi, I'm Elizabeth Geiger, and this is my new show at Gross McCleaf Gallery, Borrowed Rhythms.
9 years ago, Elizabeth Geiger was included in an important exhibition at the Pennsylvania Academy of a group of representational painters who work directly from observation. So Liz, why is a nice perceptual painter like you flirting with Cubism?
I've been waiting to come back and play in the modernist sandbox for decades. When I started painting in the 1980s, who I really wanted to be was Louisa Matthei's daughter. So I was interested in this modernism from the get-go. But very soon realized that I had no idea what I was doing and didn't have the ability to do it. After the war, de Kooning went to Provincetown. People were flocking to study with him. They were horrified when they got there, and he had set up a huge table with an elaborate still life on it and said, "We're going to spend the summer drawing this." And everyone said, "What?" Like, "No, we want to paint like you." He's like, "Exactly. So this is how you start. You got to draw this and get it right." And these people just wanted to jump in like I did when I was a young painter and start where he ended up. And he's like, "No, you got to start where I started." And I had numerous mentors tell me, learn the basics, learn what the rules are before you break them. So that's what I ended up doing.
Armed with a measure of technical skill, how did you then climb into the heads of the modernists?
The best advice I ever got as a young painter was from Bernie Chait, who wrote the best drawing book I've ever seen. And he told me that I needed to back up and go to the source of what was exciting me about painting. Whoever I was looking at, I needed to look at who they were looking at. And he said, if you're going to stay at the bottom of the mountain of art history, you're just going to stay in that one spot and you'll end up being a mimicker of that one person. But if you back up the mountain and then start zigzagging your way down, going from artist to artist and finding your way, you will end up in your own place.
Give me a couple examples.
Louisa Matthei's daughter liked Chardin, so I started looking at Chardin. Matisse liked Cézanne, so I started looking at Cézanne. And just so on and so on. I was not afraid to look back further and further to the Dutch still lifes, to early Renaissance. When you have this mindset, the entire museum is open to you instead of just a few rooms. So I'll go anywhere now and I'll see beautiful color shapes everywhere.
We art videographers sometimes must do unpleasant things. So when I spied Liz in a tete-a-tete with a valued collector, I immediately interrupted them. So you are a collector of Liz Geiger, correct?
I have collected her work, yes.
And this is quite a departure. What do you think?
I love it. It feels like a natural progression to me. Like it was immediately recognizable when I received the invitation. I felt Elizabeth right away in the work, but listening to her explain her departure has really broadened my understanding of what she's trying to accomplish as an artist. And I think it's really successful. This is a beautiful show.
Were you a fan of Cubism all along?
Fan? I don't know that I would call myself a fan of Cubism. I tend towards more of the hyper-realist, or a hopper. So the moodiness, and I feel some of that it's particularly in the yellow tabletop. There's a haunting quality to it, which feels very Hopper-esque, although I know that's not her inspiration for the work. I felt that in the piece.
Okay, Liz, who were your inspirations?
So the four artists that I was using as my mentors for this new work were Picasso, Brock, Honoré Scherer, and Robert McBride, who was a Scottish painter. And they all, in my opinion, used imaginative color. They were not using direct, observed color.
I mean, I thought bananas were yellow. They're green.
How are you doing, Matt?
Really good. How you doing?
Good. What are you friends with Liz?
Yes. Liz and I go way back, actually. Yeah. Phenomenal painter. It's great to be in front of the work. Yeah, I'm impressed.
Picasso and Braque, which one do you like better?
If I was on a desert island and I could only have one art book and it had to be one of the two, it would be Braque. So that's what I'd want to look at. But Picasso, I just can't ignore. Frankly, his drawing is just astounding. But in terms of just personal, who do I like better? It's hard not to admire Braque. An upstanding guy, and he went to fight in World War I. Picasso drove Braque to the train station and never saw him again. And Braque was injured, and Picasso was just off with his aristocratic friends partying and then ended up getting married to some famous woman. And I just found that pretty off-putting. It's like, really? So this was your best friend, and he's been shot in the war and injured, and you can't come over and see him?
Were these new paintings easier or harder for you to do than your more traditional still lifes?
In terms of what's different about painting this indirect way versus direct observation, I wouldn't say one is harder than the other. They're just very different.
I bet the Cubism is more fun.
I tend to be a little more surprised. It's fun in that sense, but the other way could be fun too. If I was doing direct observation, I found it hard to shake up a painting and sort of break it up and restart it and rethink it. What I would usually do is just sand it down and completely start again.
How did you come up with the compositions for these new works?
A lot of the composing literally was stealing outright from the artists I was looking at. I realized if I'm going to distort reality and not cling to the observation, then I don't necessarily have to use a still life setup right in front of me. I could look at a painting of someone else's still life setup and use that. I really like the 17th century golden age painters of still life. I like the complexity. So I could take their composition ideas and then add to it the assertive brushwork, color, and simplification of the modernists. So it's really just a game, like a puzzle. I'm just a very curious person that likes to pursue ideas like that. I was flipping through the Picasso book, looking for how did he solve problems, how did he answer an angle on one side with another echoing angle down below. And I started to find things like that. There started to become a logic over time to some of these modernist paintings.
I just wanted to point out this little scraping drawing right here was something that I saw in a Braque painting that I wouldn't have thought of myself. And it was a way of taking two shapes, jamming them together, but allowing this shape to continue just by drawing it with the blade of a palette knife, even though the color stopped.
The Cubists may have taken great liberties with reality, but they never painted non-objectively. Do you see yourself eventually becoming a non-objective painter?
I see the abstraction in all painting. That's what I'm looking at first, the abstract design of it. That just leaves whether or not you want to have an underlying subject, a real world reference. and I do. Observation is very important to me, and having beautiful things around me to look at will always be part of my practice. I don't ever see myself becoming a purely abstract painter, and I just say that because I absolutely love looking at my still life setups. Cubism has been another way of looking at the table and thinking about it from the front and the side, and moving around it and thinking of all the different angles at once. But there's just a lot of ideas in art that I love. At the moment, when I get back to the studio after this show, would be Fra Angelico and Hokusai, the Japanese painter, and Philip Guston. So that shows you the range of stuff that I like to look at. Painting is painting to me. But I definitely always look at representational painting. I'm just a lover of the world.
I can't end this movie without giving Scott Noel a little flack. Are the Perceptual Painters going to throw you out because you have embraced modernism?
See, the Perceptual Painters group, what I was told was that as long as there's an element of perception involved at some stage in the painting, there's people that do all kinds of things in that group. So I think it's okay.
Scott.
Hey, John.
All right, I have to ask you. The fact that one of your Perceptual Painters is doing Cubism, are you going to throw her out of the group?
No, I'm going to convert.
All right. We neo-Cubists are always looking for new blood. You can catch Liz Geiger's beautiful show at Gross McCleaf through March 25th, 2023. And you can learn more about the Perceptual Painters at their website, perceptualpainters.com.